What's up everyone, and welcome to another video. If you're watching this video, it means you are going to Kyrgyzstan, and I cannot be more excited for you because this is gonna be a once-in-a-lifetime trip, and I am here to tell you all the things that you should know before coming to Kyrgyzstan. So without further ado, let's just immediately dive in. First thing that you should need to know is the visa requirements, and I'm here to tell you that most nationalities can enter Kyrgyzstan visa-free up to 60 days, which makes it one of the easiest countries in Central Asia to visit. But still, always double check your country requirements before you fly, because visa rules can always change. Obviously, if you're staying longer than 60 days, you should definitely check it because you don't want to stay longer than you're allowed to. Then number 2 is packing, and I really want to make sure that you pack layers because the weather in Kyrgyzstan is so insanely different. If you go to a big city, for example Karakol, when I was there it was 30 degrees, we would be walking with short pants and a top and we would still be hot. And when we were high up in the mountains doing horse riding tours and sleeping in tents, I would be so cold and I would be wearing all my layers. I would be wearing sweaters, 2 or 3 pants, 2 pair of socks, because it's cold the higher up you go. So that's my number 1 most important thing, is to pack layers. Just layer up as much as possible, and you will also need a few good jackets, and if you can, some merino wool leggings or t-shirts, which work really well up in the mountains. So based on your itinerary, if you're a lot in cities, then you know to wear a little bit more light clothes. But if you go up in the mountains, if you go hiking, horse riding, if you go with a 4x4 in the mountains, make sure to pack those layers. It's really important. And when packing, keep in mind that Kyrgyzstan is not a fashion destination. You'll be living in hiking pants, sneakers and windbreakers, so I really recommend you to bring what's practical and not too much what looks good on Instagram, because this is an adventurous destination and you will need clothes that fit that. Number 3, the toilets on the road. Oh my god, this is something I wish I knew before. You will be driving up into the middle of nowhere, and the toilets there, let's just say, are an experience. I'll leave the details to you, but don't imagine too much of these toilets. Be prepared, that's all I'm saying. And bring wet tissues if can, and always make sure to have like a small piece of toilet paper with you, because put your expectations very low when it comes to toilets on the road. Then another thing you should keep in mind is that the language barrier is going to be huge. I've been traveling all around the world, and most of the time you kind of can make sense what other people are saying, but here there was no making sense of it at all. Kyrgyz and Russian are widely spoken, and English is very limited outside the main towns. So if you are in the towns, yes, you can use English and you can kind of make sense of things, and you can kind of order in English and make your way around. The moment you are outside the towns, there's no English anymore. So either make sure to download Google Translate and maybe maps offline, because it's going to be very difficult to communicate with the people. Then next up is that the roads are very difficult, and no joke. They're very rough and the distances are insanely long. Having a 4x4 car isn't a luxury here, it's just survival. Like, this is something that you need to have, and our 4x4 car had to handle such rough terrain, especially if you go higher up in the mountains. You'll probably have snow as well. There will sometimes be no roads. Kyrgyzstan is still very undeveloped in certain places. There's not much tourism going on, so there are not really real roads. So also, that reminds me, if you have car sickness, make sure to bring your tablets, because you're gonna need them. And then the question that I immediately always get is, did you had a guide? Did you had a driver? Would you recommend a guide or a driver? And my honest answer is yes, I really recommend it. Like I said, Kyrgyzstan is not a touristic destination. There's not much out there yet. We chose to do our whole tour with our guide called Ibrahim. He eventually became our really good friend. He was so genuine. He's just a guy who works by himself. He's an amazing tour guide, and he knows so much about his own country country. He has such a huge passion for his culture, for his people, and he was with us all this time. He would be driving us, he would be arranging things for us, and the thing is that he knows so many places. Kyrgyzstan still has places that are undiscovered, so many of them. Like, he would drive us to the middle of nowhere with the most insane lookout point, and honestly, you would never come there by yourself because, like, why would you? You wouldn't even know where to go. So yes, I could not recommend having a guide here more than ever, because some places you literally won't see by yourself. Yes, you can go to the main spots with the car by yourself using Google Maps, but if you want to see more, go deeper into the culture, bring a guide, and also to learn more, because like I said, the language, there's a huge language barrier, so you don't understand anything. So if you have a guide who can translate and teaches you a lot of things, it just adds more depth to the trip. What you should really keep in mind is that once you leave the cities, it's pure wilderness. There's no Wi-Fi, there's no ATM, there's no shops. Like, normally when you go into the middle of nowhere or you go from one big city to another, there's always some places where you can stop. Here, if you really go inside nature, there's nothing. You won't even have cell phone service. So our guide made sure that we had everything. Like, he would pack water, he packed food, he packed everything from beginning to end. Like, we would go for 3 or 4 days into these nature parks, nature reserves, and we had to bring everything. Like, you can't buy anything on the road, and we also didn't have cell phone service. So keep this in mind. Like, it's a really off the grid destination. It's so worth it. Like, it's definitely worth all of it, and when you're out there it doesn't even matter, but when you're packing and preparing yourself, keep it in mind. And then I have some additional points which I think are really important, which is to bring cash. This is super important. Like I said, it's very back to basics, so cash is king. Then for an eSIM or a SIM, I myself use an eSIM. I always use eSIMs from Sally. That's just my way to go. It's super easy. But Kyrgyzstan actually also offers a free eSIM service. For me, it didn't work. For my friend Julia, it worked. Look this up before you go if you would be interested in this. I quickly looked it up, and the main mobile operator in Kyrgyzstan is called O exclamation mark, and they provide 2, 3 or 4G coverage. And if you download the app, you can get, I think, a little bit even for free. So download the app and see the options that you have, and otherwise I would just work with an eSIM. Then a thing to keep in mind is that you will gain altitude very quickly in Kyrgyzstan. This is something I did not expect at all, but we would be camping at a really insane high altitude, and it really took my breath away, literally. And during my time, I've been kind of struggling with feeling tired, with feeling sluggish, like I didn't have enough energy. I was just not feeling well, and I was so confused why I was having this all the time. I even had, like, my whole eyes were super red because I was just tired and I didn't know what to do. And eventually turned out we were just camping at these super high altitudes, so it makes sense. So definitely keep this in mind and make sure to acclimatize slowly, because altitude sickness and gaining too fast altitude will make you feel super sick. Then a thing is, what blew my mind away there is that food in Kyrgyzstan is heavy and meaty. There's lots of bread, there's so much potatoes, there's a lot of meat. So if you're a vegetarian, you should really pack snacks or learn to say no meat in Russian, because you will get an insane amount of food. Like, if you come somewhere in a local homestay or people will cook food for you, like, they're used to eating big plates of food, and sometimes you would had to leave half of our plate, which felt super rude. But keep this in mind, they just eat so much meat there. And this also brings me to the next point, which is that homestays in Kyrgyzstan are very common. They're simple, they're super warm, and they're mostly family run, which is part of the charm. But you should not expect hotel standards. We've been staying in a lot of places which was just basic, like it had the basic necessities. Sometimes we didn't have a shower. It really depends on where you're sleeping. But I also guess that if you come to Kyrgyzstan, just keep in mind that this is not a luxury trip. Like, we, I think, went 4 or 5 days without showering. Like, we were eating food from these packages of food that were always prepared for us. So just don't expect luxury, and then you'll be totally fine to go. So quick tip, bring wet wipes if you want to clean yourself. Like bring wet wipes, also bring hand sanitizer. This will work miracles. Also talking about luxury, I would really recommend to bring a power bank, because plugs obviously can be a luxury in some places. So if you want to have everything charged, make sure to bring a good power bank that can at least charge your phone 3 or 4 times before you need to recharge it again. And also talking about safety, I think what is really important to know is that for me, we were with 2 girls and our guide, like we felt safe the entire time. We've been helped by locals so many times. In the cities, people were extremely friendly. They were so willing to get to know us. Like there were so many smiles. But I also heard different stories when girls were completely by themselves, and there are lots of shepherds in Kyrgyzstan and they're in the middle of nowhere by themselves. And if you're then a girl in a tent by yourself, you should always be careful. I mean, every country has its own ways and has its own unsafety, so I think common sense is just a thing to use here. But overall, I personally would say I felt super safe in Kyrgyzstan and we didn't have any unpleasant experiences at all. And I also get a lot of times questions about the horse riding, because obviously we did a lot of horse riding in Kyrgyzstan, and people ask me if you need any experience with horse riding. My first answer is no, you don't need any experience because you're not doing crazy things. Would I recommend having a little bit experience? Yes, because it's not typical horse riding that you're doing in Kyrgyzstan. You go crazy high up in the mountains. You really need to learn how to trust the horse, because sometimes you're like, I'll just let the horse take it over because it's so high and it's crazy and it's scary what you have to do. So I would recommend to have at least a little bit experience with horses so that you don't feel uncomfortable during your trek the whole time. But the saddles where you're sitting on, they're very comfortable. They're like small cushions on the saddle, so you won't have pain in your butt or whatever, which is good because sometimes saddles can be really harsh to sit on, so you don't have to worry about that. Like you can go a whole day by sitting on a saddle and not having any pain at all. And then I think last but not least, what I really recommend is to bring a crossover bag. I've been using that like crazy because when you are horse riding, it's super inconvenient to have a big backpack where you have to grab things out the whole time. If you have a little bag like this and you can just grab things out like your phone or maybe something to drink, you have it with you immediately when you're horse riding. So this is definitely a must. Then also talking about luggage, I would not recommend coming with a big suitcase because it's an adventurous destination. Like I would just recommend having a backpack. It makes it easier for all parties to travel around. And then the last thing, what I almost forgot, is that you will be entering some national parks or just some parks, and there you need a permit. We've had a lot of times that the cars in front of us did not have the right permit to enter a certain area and they literally had to turn around. Because we've been traveling with our guide Ibrahim, this was all arranged for us, so it was not a problem. But again, check this out for yourself if you're not traveling with a guide. If you would want to contact Ibrahim, I put his contact number in the link down below because he is 10 out of 10. Like I could not recommend him more. He arranged everything from airport pickup to trying out local foods. He brought us to local families, which we would have never seen ourselves if we would have not had him. He made our Kyrgyzstan experience so amazing. So big shout out to him. And if you have any other questions, put them down in the comments below. I'll try to answer them. And have the most amazing time in Kyrgyzstan. I wish you all the fun in the world. Thank you for watching and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!